What is going on today, guys? My name's Alex. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are towing with this 2023 Ram 2500 with the infamous 6.7 Cummins, and I'm excited to see what this engine is all about with the load behind it. So we have a 14,000 pound trailer setup, and if you guys can remember, 14,000 pounds is our testing weight for any 2500 to keep things nice and fair. We also mark out where the weights go, so we'll have the exact same tongue weight, the exact same trailer load, and obviously with the same trailer to really give ourselves a really nice comparison. We'll also be running the exact same 180 kilometer towing loop there and back. This gives us a really good idea of, first of all, fuel economy, acceleration, engine braking, and just general feel. A couple months ago, I towed with an F250 with the exact same trailer setup, the F250 Powerstroke. So as we go through the journey today, we'll probably compare this engine to the F250 Powerstroke, just to give some context to how well this Cummins is running. This standard output Cummins Turbo Diesel engine puts out a modest 370 horsepower as well as 850 pound-feet of torque, giving this Ram 2500 a max towing capacity of just a hair under 20,000 pounds at 19,980 pounds of towing capacity, which is quite a lot. But seeing that we're kind of comparing this to the F250 Powerstroke, it has a max towing capacity of 22,000 pounds, which is a fair bit more than this truck's max towing ability. And Ford now offers something that Ram does not in the 2500 segment, a high output engine. You can get a high output Powerstroke engine in an F250, which is kind of impressive, whereas you can only get the standard output 6.7 Cummins in a 2500. If you want the high output Cummins, you have to move up to a 3500 platform. Something I would love to see Ram do is be able to give the option of a high output Cummins in a 2500. I want to thank the official apparel sponsor of the channel, Old North Co. They are a local London, Ontario company founded by two sisters. They have a great selection of outdoor Canadian designs in t-shirts, sweaters, hats. They even have cool stuff for your dogs. If you guys are interested, put a 10% discount code down below, so check them out. Now, the physical truck that I actually have behind me, its max towing capacity is only 17,200 pounds thereabout. So now with our 14,000 pound load, we are well above 80% of this truck's max towing capacity. So that should be a really good test for this Cummins and this Ram 2500. All right, so our unloaded fender height here is about 43 1/4. We'll go with that. And now that we are fully loaded, let's see what we got. So 40 1/2. So we dropped about 2 3/4 of an inch, which was quite a bit more than the Powerstroke. I believe the Powerstroke only dropped just over 1.5 inches with the exact same setup. So interesting. My one thing would be is that this truck has coils in the back where that Powerstroke had leafs. Potentially that extra inch of squat could be due to the coils in this Ram 2500, maybe. Now, maybe another reason why this thing squatted about an extra inch over the Powerstroke is because of the payload. So this thing has a payload of only 2,100 pounds, and the Powerstroke had a payload over 2,400 pounds. So that could have something to do there. The main reason probably being that this Cummins engine in front of this truck weighs a ton. It weighs over 1,000 pounds, the engine alone. So that really does tend to limit these Ram 2500s with the Cummins in terms of their max payload ability. Well, I think it's time to get this truck and trailer on the road, put her in the wind, and see how this 6.7 Cummins can tow a load behind it. All right, we're about to hit the highway, but I have to say first, this exhaust brake works very well. Very well. Plenty of power, you know, like I normally do, just kind of bomb around town a little bit. Tons of power. Boost just kicks right in, and then you're off. This thing just sounds mean. There's something about that inline 6 diesel knock that just sounds gnarly. We're gonna jump on the highway and do our first acceleration test. We're gonna go 60 kilometers an hour to 110, our cruising speed. All right, it's always a little tricky to get it right at 60, but we'll try our best here, kids. All right, there's 60. We'll round our turn here and then boom, to the floor. Almost there. There we go, 110. I mean, that did feel a little slow. The power stroke definitely felt quicker. Not the fastest pull we've had coming onto the highway, that's for sure. We got our cruise control set at 110, which is our cruising speed. And we'll just let the truck do its thing. We're in tow haul mode, we got the exhaust brake on. And I think that's best for the run, is just to see what the truck wants to do. In terms of towing, there's a couple things that I've noticed right off the bat, but overall, I mean, it's a 2500 Cummins. This thing's pulling that load pretty easily, as you would expect, because that's what you're buying. You're buying a very good towing vehicle. But like I said, the first thing I've noticed so far is the low end torque in this thing is just phenomenal. I mean, I have not had to shift out of 6th gear at all, because what happens is the turbo boost just comes in and that low end torque can just keep the wheels turning. So we're going up a little hill here. We'll see if we need to shift gears. So our turbo boost, 16 PSI, 17 PSI, 15 PSI of boost. Let's see if we'll have to shift gears here. We might have to, it's a little steeper here. 21, 22, 21, 20, 19. So I don't think we're gonna shift gears. Interesting. So that's that low end torque I'm talking about. The power stroke, yes, it's a 10-speed transmission, but it shifted gears along that stretch. The gas 7.3 liter Godzilla in the F250 shifted down to 6 gears, so shifted 4 gears. This Cummins stayed solid in 6th gear, which is an overdrive gear, but there's a reason why this engine makes so much torque so naturally, and it's all due to the engine design. Now, unlike the Powerstroke or even the Duramax, this engine is an inline 6 engine, and because of that, it is a highly advantageous engine when it comes to towing as well as pulling things, simply because of the engine design and mainly because of the long crank throw. Now, I've chatted about this many times, but this 6.7 Cummins has the longest piston stroke out of the Duramax as well as the Powerstroke, sitting at almost 5 inches of length. Now, with that long stroke comes a very long crank throw, and with a long crank throw, you get a very good mechanical advantage on the crankshaft, and that translates to making torque very well and making torque very low in the RPM band exceptionally well. And so that is the secret behind an inline 6, and that is why every single truck in this shop and outside, they all run an inline 6 design engine, because they are phenomenal at towing and pulling, because they just make so much torque very naturally. There are a couple downsides to an inline 6. The first one being the size of it. So an inline 6 is a very long engine, and well, that's one of the main reasons why the Rams have such a long nose in comparison to Ford and GM. And to be honest, I think that's probably the main reason why Ford and GM went with a V8, is just because it's a much smaller package, and a large inline 6 like the 6.7 Cummins is quite hard to fit under the hood of a pickup truck. Now, the other major disadvantage of an inline 6, in my opinion, and you guys may disagree with me, is the top end power. An inline 6 is just not really designed to have good top end performance. I find after about 2,000 RPM, there is a noticeable drop in power and performance in this engine, and it makes sense because this Cummins loves to be lower in the RPM band, and that's where it makes a lot of its power. When in comparison to your V8s in your GM and the Ford, they have a lighter rotating assembly, meaning that they're going to be able to make a lot of power higher up in the RPM bands in comparison to this engine. It's so cool to see that this Cummins doesn't need to shift gears. You know, we are going on up a pretty good incline long and steady on this hill, and we're still in 6th gear, and we just see the boost just kind of go up and down as needed and pushing this engine forward. Again, like I mentioned, the low end torque is phenomenal on this engine, and that's what keeps those wheels turning despite being in 6th gear, which is a very heavy overdrive gear. I believe it's 0.62 to 1, which is a very deep overdrive. Even the Powerstroke, despite being more powerful on paper, did have to downshift into a lesser overdrive gear. So, you know, it just goes to show the real world is a little bit different than what's on paper, because on paper, this engine has less power than that Powerstroke. However, in the real world, it didn't need to downshift. It kept its speed right at 110 and just fed some more boost into the engine along with that low end torque, keeping those wheels moving. So kind of cool to see. Now, in terms of fuel economy, we are sitting at 11.7 miles per gallon. The Powerstroke finished with 12.5 miles per gallon. So we'll keep an eye on our fuel economy. Usually what happens is as the run goes by, we get more efficient for whatever reason. So as we kind of go up this little hill here around the corner, once again, we can see we're still in 6th gear, which is our top gear, and turbo is just feeding boost in this engine. It's a little more critical that it does that because we only have 6 gears with this engine. These Ram 2500 trucks with the Cummins come with the 65 RFE 6-speed transmission from Chrysler, and in my opinion, they're just not very good units. Over the years, they have been somewhat beefed up and revised, but in general, I think it is a weak point in this Ram 2500 truck. Now, the Powerstroke and its 10-speed is not flawless either. There is quite a few issues known with that 10-speed transmission. However, you get 10 gears, which in my opinion makes a transmission so much more versatile, because when you're towing, you have that many extra gears to be able to put you in your peak torque band, where you only have 6 in this truck. And like I said, it's not necessarily the strongest unit. If it was a bulletproof unit like those old Allison 6-speeds in the older Duramaxes, I would forgive it, but it is not a bulletproof transmission, and it does have some flaws to it. Now, the reason why I say that Ford is so much more versatile in terms of its 10-speed transmission when towing is because, well, with this transmission, we only have 1 or 2 gears to really choose from on the highway. For example, we're in 6th gear, so let's drop to 5th gear. That's 2100 RPM. Whereas that Powerstroke, you had 10th gear, 9th gear, 8th gear, 7th gear, which is 1-to-1, 6th gear and 5th gear. So you had 5 gears to choose from, where we only really have 3, more or less 2. All right, so we're coming to a pretty big downhill section. Nice thing about this Cummins is you actually have an exhaust brake gauge on here, so we'll see what that does for us. So we're 113, 114, boom, there's our exhaust brake, come on. There you go. So you can see how much exhaust brake the truck is currently putting out, and it works well. It works really well. It's actually come off because we're going too slow. Boom, back on. It'll totally hold you. Wow. That exhaust brake is actually really good. Okay, wow. 4th gear, holding us good. Well, we might get jammed up here with this trailer. All right, we're gonna have to manually apply some brakes here, boys. But hopefully you guys got the idea. That exhaust brake is no joke. It is by far the best out of the Duramax and the Powerstroke, without a doubt. It has them both beat by about a mile, in my opinion. I'm sure you guys can let me know what you think. I've heard a couple guys say how the Duramax exhaust brake is not that great, and I would agree with that. The Powerstroke was okay, but this one is by far the best, no doubt about it. We made it to our halfway point. This thing is actually riding really, really well. I guess maybe the coils in the back are making this thing nice and smooth. It's just a really, really good ride right now. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the Ford F250s, but I am really impressed with the ride quality on this Ram 2500 for sure. Now, the other thing that's a little surprising is like the real world torque, I guess, on this thing. I mean, it rarely has to shift gears. It just puts more boost in that engine, and that low end torque just keeps spinning these wheels kind of no matter what hill I go up. Obviously, I'm not in the mountains, and I'm not really towing a max towing capacity load, but you know, for 14,000 pounds, it's pretty impressive. Well guys, I decided to make this a two-part video just because, well, on the backside of our towing loop, we really start to see the struggle of the Ram 2500 with the Cummins. We start going over some bigger hills, and I really dive deep into as to why I think that is. So look forward to the rest of this video, or I guess part 2 later in the week. But I hope you guys are liking the towing review so far. Let me know what you guys think. Always love reading those comments. But if you did like the video, don't forget to leave that thumbs up. And if you like cool stuff like this, don't forget to subscribe, because we'd love to have you on board. Anyways, enough of me. We'll see you on part 2 later in the week.